I feel like I'm getting hammered.
The Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark spent last season enduring cheap shots, hard fouls, and defenders trying to bully her off her game. But that era is officially over. The Indiana Fever have loaded their roster with not one, not two, but 3 enforcers who won't stand for any of that anymore.
So the Indiana Fever have got their enforcer. They have got their enforcer for Caitlin Clark. And I'm not gonna lie, like, when it comes to Caitlin Clark and their enforcer, last year everyone was talking about them needing an enforcer.
Natasha Howard, Sophie Cunningham, and DeWanna Bonner. 3 veteran stars known for their toughness and physicality. If Clark's critics thought they could keep targeting her with hard fouls and cheap shots, they're in for a rude awakening. The message is loud and clear. If you come after Caitlin Clark, you'll have to go through them first.
The closest thing they had was Erica Wheeler. That was the closest thing they had for someone to defend Caitlin Clark, was Erica freaking Wheeler. Maybe Tammy, but Caitlin Clark was getting hit a lot. She was getting hit a lot early, and they needed their Charles Oakley.
It isn't just about adding talent. It's about making a statement. The Fever aren't just here to compete. They're here to dominate. With these new additions, they've built a squad that can play fast, play tough, and most importantly, protect their star player. Clark's Bullies. They've officially been put on notice. So how exactly will these 3 game changers transform the Fever into one of the most dangerous teams in the WNBA? Let's break it down.
Sometimes you need one of those players on your team. You need one of those enforcers. Every good player, by the way. Every good player, every good team that is a super duper star. Most of the time have enforcer.
Imagine this. Caitlin Clark, the most electrifying rookie the WNBA has seen in years, steps onto the court for her debut season. The energy is electric. Fans are on the edge of their seats, and everyone expects her to put on a show. But instead of a smooth welcome into the league, what does she get? Hard fouls, unnecessary contact, a level of physicality that bordered on outright targeting. What was really happening here?
That's all I see. They try so long to get respect for women's basketball, and then they treat it like a junior high school girl's locker room. Junior high school girl antics on the court.
Get down. This wasn't just typical rookie treatment. Clark wasn't just adjusting to the physicality of the pro game. She was dealing with a level of aggression that went beyond competition. Cheap shots, body checks, hard fouls that had no place in the game. At times, it felt less like a basketball court and more like a wrestling ring. And here's where it gets shocking. Clark wasn't just another rookie facing tough defense. She was singled out. The numbers don't lie. A staggering 177% of all flagrant fouls in the WNBA last season were committed against her. That's not just physical play. That's a clear sign that players were making it a point to rough her up. But
what little girl wants to grow up and play in a league where you're targeted like that? How do you sit here and profess and demand that everyone take women's sports seriously when you can't even take it seriously enough to not act like a junior high queen on the court? It's stupid. That's so dumb. It looks like a soap.
And leading the charge, none other than the Chicago Sky. A jaw-dropping 80% of those flagrant fouls against Clark came from one team. That's not just a coincidence. That's a statement. They weren't just trying to defend her. They were trying to send a message. Why? Was it intimidation? Frustration? Or just an old-school attempt to slow down a rising star? Whatever the reason, one thing was clear. Clark's presence made some players uncomfortable.
Clark! Hammer!
One of the worst examples. Angel Reese herself. Picture this. Clark drives through the lane, eyes locked on the basket, when, suddenly bam, Reese sends her crashing to the floor. The arena falls silent. Fans hold their breath. Would she get up? The hit was so brutal that even commentators started questioning whether it had gone too far. But Clark, she's built different. She dusted herself off, got back to her feet, and kept playing Device into phone like nothing happened.
I think we went up really strong a lot of times, and we didn't get a lot of calls. And going back and looking at the film, I've seen a lot of calls that weren't made. I guess some people got to...
That's what sets Clark apart, her composure under pressure, while everyone else debated. Whether the hits were high too much wire foul, she stayed locked in, even after taking a blatant cheap shot from Kennedy Carter. Clark's response was simple. That's just not a basketball play, but you gotta play through it. No complaints. No retaliation. Just the kind of mental toughness, that makes legends.
Clark. I mean, that's clearly a foul, which was called. The question is, will they call it unnecessary? Kennedy Carter.
Clark proved she could take the hits. The Fever's front office knew they couldn't let her go through another season unprotected. So they made high moves, big ones. With the addition of some serious enforcers, Indiana is making sure that no one gets away with bullying Clark anymore. Who are these enforcers? And how are they about to change the entire dynamic of the Indiana Fever? Let's dive in.
Massive step forward for the Indiana Fever and their quest for a championship. In Howard, the Fever gain a three-time WNBA champion, a Defensive Player of the Year, an All-Star, and a veteran with more than 300 games played.
Natasha Howard isn't just another addition to the Indiana Fever, she's the enforcer. This team desperately needed. The moment she stepped into that locker room, the message was clear. Caitlin Clark is no longer an easy target. For those who don't know, Howard is a three-time WNBA champion, a former Defensive Player of the Year, and a player whose toughness can redefine an entire team's identity. She's not here for gimmicks. She's here to make sure the days of Hog Clark getting bullied on the court are over.
All of that, and we haven't yet touched upon what Howard does best: defend. Howard was named Defensive Player of the Year in 2019 and has finished in the top 10 of the Defensive Player of the Year voting 3 times in her career. Howard has averaged at least 1 block and 1 steal per game in each of her last 7 seasons. And that versatility is really what makes her a weapon on defense.
Clark faced relentless physicality from defenders who thought they could rough her up without consequence. But now, those same defenders will have to think twice before trying those same antics. Howard's presence alone shifts the balance of power. Standing next to Clark on the court, she instantly commands respect. But Howard isn't just an enforcer. She's a game-changer on both ends of the floor. Last season, she averaged 17.6 points, 6.7 rebounds, and nearly 3 assists per game. Elite-level production. And the best part? She can stretch the floor. With Howard's ability to hit from beyond the arc, she's going to open up even more space for Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston to operate.
Last season, with a minimum of 25 games played, Natasha Howard was one of just 13 players to average 18 points per game. She was one of 16 players to average 7 rebounds per game. And the list of players to average both 18 and 7 last year, short and elite. A'ja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, Napheesa Collier, Brittany Griner, and yes, Natasha Howard.
Was one of just 13 players. Last season to average not 18 points per game, and one of the 16 players who had to grab it at least 7 rebounds per game. But the list of players who had averaged both. That's an exclusive club, featuring names like A'ja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, Napheesa Collier, Brittany Griner, and yes, Natasha Howard. Defense is where Howard truly shines. There's a reason she won Defensive Player of the Year in 2019. She's a nightmare caisson for opponents in the paint. She's got the length, physicality, and aggressive style too, to make life miserable for anyone trying to score inside. And when it comes to protecting her teammates, let's just say she has a history of standing up when it matters most. The Fever's secret weapon: playoff experience. Indiana has a young, talented
Wingspan and 6'2" height allows her to be disruptive defensively around the rim on opposing bigs too. In fact, Howard will enter the 2025 season 25th all-time in blocks in WNBA history.
squads require veteran leadership. That's exactly what Howard brings. She's played in over 50 postseason games, and that experience is more invaluable. She knows what it takes to win, and now she's bringing that mentality to Indiana.
Caitlin Clark was getting hit a lot. She was getting hit a lot early, and they needed their Charles Oakley. You've got that in Sophie Cunningham.
Matches that of Fever fans. In her own words, "I'm excited to return to Indiana and bring my experience and toughness to the team. I want to help Caitlin and the Fever compete at the highest level." And that's exactly what she's going to do. This move isn't just about protecting Clark. It's about elevating her key. Howard knows just what it takes to be a champion, and now she's here to show Clark and the Fever how to dominate. With her in the mix, Indiana isn't just fighting back. They're ready to take over.
There are so many videos of Sophie Cunningham just starting brawl.
Here's heading to Indiana, and the WNBA just got a whole lot more interesting. If Caitlin Clark needed someone to keep the Bullies in check while draining threes, she just got her. The Fever weren't just looking for talent this offseason, they were looking for toughness. And in Cunningham, they found both Jordan.
In general, is just wild. Wild is the best word I can use to describe Sophie Cunningham. And it is just, it's carnage. It's carnage a lot of the time when Sophie Cunningham gets involved with anything. The amount of fights that Sophie Cunningham has been involved in is mental.
Might be wondering, Sophie Cunningham, wasn't she supposed to be luring Clark to Phoenix? Turns out, Clark had other plans. Instead of heading west, she made sure Cunningham joined her squad. This wasn't just a random signing, it was strategic. The Fever needed someone who could bring energy, attitude, and relentless toughness, and Cunningham checks all those boxes.
Allen fouls her, and then tries to step over, and then Sophie Cunningham grabs her leg. Nobody's going near Maisha Hines-Allen, but no, Sophie Cunningham will start the fight. The refs are trying to break it up. None of the Mercury players are going to go near Maisha Hines-Allen. They're scared. She's scared the bejesus out of them. Maisha Hines-Allen is one of the toughest players in this league. Sophie Cunningham going head to head straight.
About what makes Cunningham such a perfect fit for Indiana. Elite shooting. She's not just tough, she's a deadly marksman from beyond the arc. Last season, she shot 37.8% from three. And with Clark running the offense, expect that number to go even higher. Imagine defenses scrambling to guard Clark and Mitchell, while Cunningham is spotting up for open threes. Good luck with that.
Like Sophie Cunningham, there are so many things where it's like, part of it her fault, part of it not her fault, but she will not back down. She will not back down under any circumstances from anything. And that is what the Indiana Fever need. If somebody hits Caitlin Clark, if somebody does what Victoria Vivians did to Caitlin Clark, it's not going to be Caitlin Clark that's getting involved to be teed up. Sophie Cunningham's in there. You take the technical foul. You take it.